So I should have known I was going to lose my internet when I shut the car off. Silly me. Hey there, got disconnected or something. Yes, Joseph Coates. Yeah, I got disconnected. And so I'm going to continue to talk about the cover up that I was talking about in the previous, that Jesus talked about cover ups. And if somebody wants to, oh yes, I need my belt on. So I got to get back on the road again. Well, yeah, so I knew that the, the well, I didn't say I knew. I'm not trying to like take credit for being a big shot or something. But it was just apparent to me that occurred to me. Let me put it that way. It occurred to me that they weren't going to give us everything that they said. Even when they said they were going to give us the JFK files, I was thinking, well, maybe we'll get something. But see, the way I think about it is that there's going to be other leaks because that's one of the things that people want to do now that they can tell the truth. There's a lot of people probably that didn't want to go along with covering things up. In fact, I heard this a long time ago that there were like two camps, which there are. The Republicans and Democrats are clearly two camps. Uh, so, so they both have interest in keeping certain things covered up or not talked about. And I think rightly so that some things, you know, it's their business. And I mean, if you had to put everything out there for a referendum to decide, that would be wild, wouldn't it? Like every choice they make, every bill they sign, every part of every bill would have to be a referendum. That would be more of a democracy then, I guess. And in the referendum, would they include all the the degrees in which so much money will go to this and that, and and what they have to do with it, and how to prove that they're doing what they have to do. So I think a lot of money went out that was just totally a front, a totally affront effort, or that they were doing it, but they were putting very little of that money into it. And see, now there would be people that received it, of course, that aren't gonna like talk about that. But then again, you might find some that might talk about it. It might even be for. So this is gonna, it's so you have all these federal judges will be fighting every step, every instance of any significance, and then so the Supreme Court's gonna be busy as hell, I guess. But what if the Supreme Court doesn't go along with uh, the federal court judges? I don't know. It's crazy. There could be all kinds of things being framed. Talk about false flags over the years. People would say, this is a false flag and this is a false flag. Everything like that shooting that happened at that Las Vegas hotel, Mandalay Bay, I think it was. But I remember as soon as that happened, there were days later, uh, I was listening to one blog of this gal that was talking about the people that were talking about a false flag and putting things in videos to show the evidence of that. Being somebody's face that was there and saying that party person couldn't have been there because they were over here at this time and things like that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. The FBI became very good at stimulating people to do things. But I think most of the time, I don't know if some of them got through their fingers or they just wanted to let them slip. But sometimes they stopped and arrested those people before they did anything, damaging to themselves or others. But but and then the Russian collusion thing, I'm pretty sure makes sense to me. I've seen the evidence of it, and uh, I've heard the evidence of it. Of the reason why it failed was because it was poorly constructed. They made things up, and they didn't get their story straight. And the FBI was involved in it. So, yeah, it's corrupt. Nothing new. I mean, but it's more corrupt than I think it's ever been, or more apparent. Let me put it that way. Because I think they didn't even care if they were caught. They were so certain, I think, that they could continue what they had because they were so convinced that Trump couldn't win. Until, like Kathy was saying, they let Barr, which I also felt the same about, is, actually I wasn't that clear about it at the time, I remember, but I think it's true that that they let Biden do that, kind of knowing that it would be his downfall. Well, knowing that it would be his downfall. And that was funny in a sense, because then they let the media continue to bolster Biden, which showed them all to be stooges. But perhaps they just believed those people. So that would have been a really good wake-up call for those people. And I understand CNN's doing some changes. Of course, you got to do some changes if you want to survive, because next thing you know, you'll be implicated in the lies and the corruption and the deceit and the manipulation that was happening for at least 4 years. I mean, it was happening before that. It's been happening that I'm aware since in an elevated way since 2000. You know, with the coup d'état of not Florida not recounting the votes because the Supreme Court decided against it. When it's state sovereignty when it comes to the ballot. So the Supreme Court should not have, it was illegal for the Supreme Court to weigh in on an election, on the state decisions on the election. And the Florida state, look it up, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think so though. They ruled to recount at least one big county's votes where there were a lot of allegations of different fraudulent kind of things. In the way they were counting, determining what the person intended in the vote because of, you know, what they didn't do enough of or on the ballots, you know, by pushing a hole through the Chad or whatever they call them. I guess the Chad was the little piece of cardboard. But that wasn't the only reason. That was just one of the number of things that had happened that were discovered and questioned. That so anyway, of course, you know, I could go through my whole list of things that I guess that's what I'm doing. But you know, and then when the event in New York happened after the 2000 election, and I was watching everything I could watch and reading everything that was being posted. Or talked about on the radio, because there are all kinds of people talking about stuff after those events. And you know, there was certainly the whole segment of society that like were aware of all the deceit of the government before that. You know, putting together lists and history and timelines and what happened here, what happened there. You know, like you know, the evidence that the mayor of I think it was the same individual, I believe, that was that Kamala Harris, I believe, was dating. I forgot his name right now. But I had heard the story in 1997 that he was warned ahead of time not to fly. I might have even said not to fly, you know, to that area. I don't know. what was the degree of it. I don't have any evidence of that. But I definitely heard it on some show or another. And maybe it was Willie Brown. Is that right? May have that wrong, but anyway, and there were others. There were, there were. I had my own experiences because my first cousin's husband, worked in the World Trade Center, and he was in the stock market, and he decided not to go to work that day because I forgot what he wanted to do. But he didn't go to work that day. And as far as I know, he was, a regular hour, a weekday hour, person. Anyway, so he wasn't there then. And then his son worked in the World Trade Center for an insurance company. And the insurance company was sizable. They had a number of offices in it, and his son didn't go to work that same day, but decided to take the day to look for a new car. So those are two stories that. So what are you implying, Sawyer? Right? Um, well, I'm implying that one of two things. They were either picking up on something from the ether, from the spirit world, from the thoughts that were going around. That's possible. Or another possibility is that the next level was alerting them to not go to work, to make something seem like this is the right time to do something, to give them that kind of help. Or um, or humans were doing it, and that's part of what thoughts were around that they could have picked up on. But I don't think, because I don't think my relatives of my vehicle had any real political leanings or, any influence on people, that many people, to where the government would have an interest in protecting that person. Because they were willing to sacrifice people. They're always willing to sacrifice people. That's what the wars are. So for us to think that they wouldn't do that, they wouldn't. What about all those people that were innocent? They would have been thinking that they're dying for a good cause. And that's the way that they would think. That's the way generals think. And the president is the commander in chief. But I don't think for a minute that um, uh, uh, Bush knew. But I think Bush heard about things, was given clues, but perhaps not the actual date. So he would look genuinely surprised when he was in that school. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, I don't think he was a very good actor. And you know something about Bush, G.W. Bush? I've seen the recent photographs of when they all went to the Jimmy Carter's funeral, and also another event that happened before that. I think, and maybe Trump's inauguration was another one. And whenever they took a picture of George Bush, he looks like that same deer in the headlights caught. It's like he looks like he feels guilty, like like he was bad. I think he even believes that about himself. I could be wrong. And there's a aspect to that I hope he's talking to the highest source he can imagine, and and maybe he doesn't know what else to do about it because so many people are depending on him to not spill beans. But you never can tell what people are going to say before they die. That does that is the source of a number of things, and we don't necessarily hear about those things because it's not in the interest of the media to put them out. It's not in the interest of the government to put them out because they like the conspiracies that they've built, like with the UFO story. I think, and they believe they're necessary. But some have questions about it, I believe. And some wanted to come out because Doe said that he didn't think the space aliens would have an interest in bringing that information fully disclosed. He didn't use those words, but you'll hear that in 627 as well. Just a little thing he said about it. Um, what he added to that was unless maybe for some development for those from other cultures like India, I think the Eastern, he said, people from of the Eastern beliefs as opposed to the Western beliefs. So those little insights that look like little insights to us, to me, are huge. And I can make too much of them. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, you can play things out too much. I was guilty of doing that. I've been guilty of doing that. And you see that being done in the human kingdom. Oh, jeez. Like playing it out so much that you think that the earth is flat. And playing it out so much that you think that humans never landed on the moon. Playing it out so much that you think that there's nothing really happening in outer space. I mean, who knows? Those might have been the ideas that were stimulated by the CIA, in order to have this information seed sown. That some people would gravitate to because they would see, this little piece of evidence and this little piece of evidence and this little piece of evidence and think, oh, okay, that's the evidence. That makes sense. Yeah, I believe that. I can see somebody considering it because I wanted to see what they had to say about it, those things. But the same kind of mindset that says there was no Holocaust, you know, wasn't that many people that died or whatever, I don't know. We see, you know, uh, it's like, it's like the way that the history books in the schools, at least when I was going to school, didn't talk about any of the alternative thinking to the reason for the wars and you know how they actually developed. They just would give you events, you know, the sinking of the Lusitania, because you know they never like in school they didn't say why the Lusitania was sunk that I remember, and if it was allowed to sink, allowed to be hit, if they really had already cracked the code that they were monitoring of the German U-boats communications, so that they knew that that wasn't a place to be, and that maybe they were carrying ammunition. Maybe they thought, well, we want to get this to them, and if they get it, then you know, because there were people that wanted to get into the war long before they got into the war. I don't know how long it was, but I mean, there was an anti-war movement. There were a lot of people, soldiers that young people that didn't want to go. I think it's safe to say any of the wars. But in those days, they were talking about as you know, if you were a traitor, then I think you would be shot. Shows how primitive they were not that long ago. But how much you know development happened. Uh, you know, one thing Nixon did good was, well, I mean, he did a number of things. You know, he started the talks with China, I think. Yeah, Biden said it was plausible deniability on you know the conversations that he was part of with Chinese representatives, and you know potentially receive millions of dollars. But so I don't know how far they're going to go because at the same time there's going to be all kinds of false flags. I think false flags meaning sowing of misinformation, disinformation, you know, so that I don't know. I there might be a reason why there were only four um, presidents after Chindo left. Clinton, Bush, Obama. No, the Biden, right? Trump, Biden, and Trump again. No, but the four horses of the apocalypse. I think. See, I don't think Clinton was mentioned there. I think it was strictly, though during the Clinton era, his leaving was the demonstration of the white horse. He goes conquering and then he conquers. So he's in process of conquering and then he conquers. So the process of conquering was he and T, and then him alone, taking the student body through the birth canal. That's the spirit birth that was talked about by Jesus. Birth of the mind. Birth of the next level mind. The holy mind. The only genuine mind. Real mind. Because the Luciferian mind is a facsimile of reality. It doesn't exist. He would say that in the Black Hawk tapes. You can hear T saying they don't exist. They don't exist because they're gonna die. Their vehicles and their spirits and their thoughts are gonna, peter out. When there's no more vehicles to have certain kind of thoughts, then the thoughts in the atmosphere eventually dissipate, I believe. At least they dissipate into not being able to be probably recognized as a thought. If another being had the processing unit of a human and the programming of recognition of certain thoughts. If the computer, the brain, but the computer being really the mind that uses that brain, if it doesn't have certain programs, it doesn't think in certain ways. I mean, that's plain to see happening. We all know that. Look at the people that have certain skills, certain talents, certain ways of thinking. And that's, intellectualism and popularity in governments and corporations. And, art, all the different, right, approaches, movie making and entertainment and everything. There's all different degrees of and categories of the human mind, the misinformation mind. Politics is, of course, part of it too. And nobody's a master of it. And it's got a certain amount of fluidity. But it's only when people are looking for the truth about something that they can find it. Because otherwise their processing unit isn't open to it. It's not going to suck it in. It's not going to consider it. It might read it, the information, but it won't register as something of value towards thinking in a different way. Or if it does, it won't last. Because Jesus talked about the stages of that, some of them would fall on ground that didn't have root system, and so And so it fell away from the truth. And some got plucked up by the space aliens, the birds, some of the truth. That's like when a space alien is allowed to take, it's not prevented by taking, because Next Level said that, TNO said that they didn't think the vehicles that the Next Level were picking and the returning students were picking were allowed to be abducted by the space aliens. So from that, you can then recognize that space aliens were allowed to abduct some individuals, and that that I guess that would have meant that who are used as contactees, maybe that's part of that. I don't know. It depends on what the abduction experience might have been, I guess. How much it would have affected that individual to where they were able to turn it into a positive when it might not have been a positive initially, to where they would feel like they were chosen. That might have been the space aliens working with that individual that they took on their spacecraft and implanted with a sperm to produce children. Or vice versa. But so I think it's also from Next Level Mind, not only to bring the truth out, to stop censorship. I think that's from the Next Level Mind. That doesn't mean that they are members of the Next Level. That doesn't mean they're even working for the Next Level, directly or indirectly. But to some degree, the Next Level may have their eye on certain individuals and might think that they're doing well in certain areas. And that goes for anybody. That goes for Biden. That goes for Kamala Harris. That goes for anybody. We're not able to judge, like Trump, right? I mean, he's the one that survived that onslaught by the Democrats, and maybe he got help. Maybe that help was from a space alien, a group of space aliens. I mean, a family of space aliens. That the space aliens hybridized to be among them. Who also die. And that's why they want humans to come up with a way to not die, or to at least replace organs. With the brain being the number one. But they know how to move the mind into the new vehicle. They just got to teach it everything that the soul had in it. But to teach everything that the soul had in it, that's why I think they want souls. Because anything that the next level deposited gives the recognition that the next level exists and is real. So I wonder how tricky that is. So if they can get the soul with any of the vehicles that didn't graduate, to look to them or to look to the universe, call it whatever you want, but don't put a person on it. Don't put a face on it. Unless it's the face of a religious leader, like the Pope. You know, even though I don't think that many Catholics really think of the Pope as a representative of God's kingdom. I don't know if they do or not. It's hard to imagine. But, you know, or see them as a Jesus equivalent. But then humans do. That's what the Jews used to think about Moses. I don't know if they think about Moses anymore like that. Because the Jewish religion, Judeo, uh, they quickly lost track of what they got as well. But not everybody. Okay, folks, I just got to my location, so I'm going to end the stream as soon as I turn off this road. It's been a pleasure. Good night.